Hello and welcome to the Outlaws podcast with Kate and Shayla for professionals unlearning the rules of work and life. Ditch the shoulds and build what fits. Today in the Outlawbrary, we're diving into the 5 types of wealth by Sahil Bloom. Sahil's central argument is deceptively simple. Financial wealth is only one form of wealth. He lays out 5 types: financial, social, physical, mental, and time wealth, and challenges the idea that piling up money while bankrupting the rest of your life is somehow a win.
In this episode, we unpack what this framework means for high performers, especially lawyers and professionals who were taught to optimise for income, status, and external validation. If you've been redefining success, questioning the scoreboard, or quietly wondering whether the ladder you're climbing is even leaning against the right wall, then we think this conversation might be for you. Shayla, before we start talking about the book, we had a listener question.
Oh, did we?
We did, and it was not submitted through official channels. It came to me via my husband, who is on the same floor as our listener. And this listener, who we'll call Chris because that's his name, wanted to know how I'd been going with my plan to not use audiobooks and not read in bed, because I think it was episode 19 of season 1. We spoke to Alicia Visser, who's a sleep expert, and she was saying that you really shouldn't do anything else in bed other than sleep and X-rated stuff that we won't talk about on this podcast.
Other exercise.
Right. That's a very nice way of putting it, Grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so and I had explained I had sleep headphones. I would listen to audiobooks, usually by someone with a beautiful voice who was kind of boring. And Barack Obama, I'm afraid, is that person. A stunningly gorgeous voice, quite slow. And I can't remember the name of the book. It's the autobiography of his time as the president of the United States.
Yeah. And
he's a details man. So there's a lot of detail that I found, frankly, a bit tedious. But that was the perfect combination, right?
Yep.
So I found that I was listening to Barack Obama. I have recently switched over to Stanley Tucci, who is not boring, but has a beautiful voice. It's his book called Taste, which is a fantastic book. So on Alicia's suggestion, I thought I'm going to try doing without listening or reading in bed. And she suggested having a chair next to your bed. So if you want to read or listen, you get out of bed and you sit in the chair. There is a really nice, comfortable wingback armchair in our bedroom, but it's on the other side of the bed to me.
Side.
So I thought, okay, well, I'll just move this chair around. Went through all this palaver and rearranged the bedroom. The chair did not fit next to my side of the bed. So I thought, okay, I'm committed to this experiment. And we swapped bedsides.
Oh, my God. Oh, I don't even know how you can do that.
I don't know how you do that either. Now, actually, here's another question. When you say you sleep on the left side of the bed or the right side of the bed, from what perspective? When you're in the bed?
Yes.
Or when you're looking at the bed?
No, in it. No, I might be wrong, but, I'm quite clear that that's what I do. So surely everyone else does.
Anyway, so massive commitment, right?
Massive.
Switching sides of the bed. Who even does that? Well,
No one.
And made my husband do that as well. He's kind of lucky. He can sort of sleep anywhere. But it was so weird.
Yeah.
After sort of 4 or 5 nights, I don't care. I'm going back. I cannot sleep on the right side of the bed. I'm a left side sleeper, and that has been the way it's been 32 years, right? So I gave it a good shot, but it did not work. And I have reverted to my old habits.
Okay. So the short answer to the question that came.
That was the short answer.
From you.
That was my kind of short answer.
Is, how's it going? Not well.
It's an experiment that is still as yet
to be resolved.
Yeah, to be resolved.
Okay. Well, thank you for that listener question, Chris. I don't think that I agreed to do anything out of the episode, did I? No, clever me.
I don't think so. But I'm too sleep deprived to remember.
Yeah.
But I can tell you what Stanley Tucci's life has been like. And I'm on fairly good terms with Barack Obama's presidency as well. Look, I tried, I failed. It's a interior design issue.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Chris, for asking that question.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We love listeners' questions, particularly very deep ones like that.
Yeah. Only my sleep was as deep as that question.
Does that get us to Sahil Bloom
It does get us to Sahil Bloom. It does.
and
Yeah.
to 5 Types of Wealth?
Yeah. Okay.
Did you like it?
Okay. Here's the thing. I read it through the first time and I was like, great premise, horrible execution.
Right. Okay.
I think there's actually
Yeah.
a lot of good material in it. I read through the book and I didn't like it and I couldn't work out why.
Mm.
And I thought, I'm going to read it through again.
Right. Okay.
And so I did appreciate it more on the second read, actually. I did think, oh, there's a lot of really distilled wisdom in this book. And if you just wanted to buy one book in this genre, then everything's in there. He's not, well, the premise is original. I don't think he's suggesting that the material that backs up his premise is original. I've seen it in many other places, the type of stuff he's talking about. But this premise that he has that there's too much of an emphasis on financial wealth. Actually, these are all the other types of wealth and they need to be prioritized. And that's quite right. So I think his way of putting it is quite unique. And I liked that. But I think this is a book that could have been an email. Well, that's only one problem I have with it. I'll get to the big problem I have with it. So yes, his premise is financial wealth is only one kind of wealth. There are 4 other kinds of wealth that we need to prioritize. Social wealth, what is it?
Mental
wealth,
physical,
social, and time wealth. So excellent concepts, right? But I feel it could have been summarized as friends, good, curiosity, good, walking, good, nutrition, good. That's probably pretty obvious, you know.
My thought when I read this book was this is the stuff that Kate and I have been talking about and thinking about, distilled, I guess, into one book. And so maybe it just feels obvious to us because you and I have already talked about it a lot, or we surround ourselves with people who are already quite au fait with, you know, that idea that that's how they run their lives. But maybe for people who are just beginning this sort of thinking in this way, maybe it's not as obvious to them.
Actually, that's a fair point. And I do think there was an awful lot of distilled wisdom in this book. So, and he goes really granular. It sort of starts out with this is the concept. And then these are the questions you can answer in there. And then he does go into a fair amount of, is granularity a word?
I think so.
I think it is. And if it's not, it should be. But a fair amount of granularity or granular detail about how you can achieve these things. And so it's actually a very dense, useful book, I think. It was, I thought, obvious, especially the concept of time is finite and we only have a certain amount of time. So we have to prioritize the important things. And I'm like, thanks, Oliver Burkeman. Yes, exactly. And I still think Oliver Burkeman's books, I like the way they're written.
Yeah, same.
And they lean more towards the philosophical than actual, this is what you do.
Yeah. This is much more practical, I think. You know, whereas Oliver is more philosophical. But
I didn't realize you and Oliver were on first name terms. I still call him Mr. Berkman.
But I think that, again, like the same could be said of 4,000 Weeks, right? Like it's obvious. We've only got so much time. There's only so much. So I don't know. I think sometimes it depends where you are on another of your favourite words, the journey to enlightenment or the journey to...
A wave of nausea overtook me when you said journey.
But, you know, I just think, it's probably obvious to you and I because we read a lot of this stuff and we talk about this stuff all of the time. But I suspect that there's people who are still very much in the trenches and not feeling very contented and not quite sure why they're not feeling very contented. That, I think it probably provides a good framework. You know, starting point maybe, even though it might feel as though it's a little bit, it is telling people how to suck eggs a little bit. I do think there are some useful frameworks in there for people who are feeling super stuck and just don't even know where to get started.
Yeah.
But I think it might just be useful. I mean, we kind of did it in the introduction, but just to give a brief explanation of of what this book is. I think you talked about it a little bit before, but basically it's just him saying, a huge amount of people in society define wealth only by what you have financially and don't think about a whole heap of other things. And so what this book is about is creating maybe a new way of keeping a scoreboard, if you want a scoreboard in your life, and thinking about, how else we can measure success in our life other than simply by measuring money. So there's 5 different sections. He delves into them in quite a lot of depth in that there's a chunk of pages for each different section. And as you said, there's also different questions and frameworks at the end of each one so that you can understand perhaps how you are currently prioritizing each of those things. Yeah. So that's the premise.
It is the premise. One of the things I really loved that he talks about, and I don't know how you pronounce it correctly, but the Swedish word lagom.
Yeah.
He talks about just the right amount.
Mm.
And
Yep.
that's very backwards budgety. And I think that's such a good concept, right? Because financial wealth is one of his pillars. He's
Yeah.
not going, it doesn't matter, because it does matter. You know, it does matter to have security, and it does matter to have enough, because it's not much fun if you're doing
No.
without. But I guess his point is, and it's been said many, many times before, is that we have to be clear that we're not just accumulating because that's just the natural kind of human tendency to keep going after more, more, more. There's a point at which you probably need to know, well, what do you need to be happy, really? And actually, maybe you're at that point, or maybe you're a few years away from that point, or whatever it is, but it's going to be individual for each person.
Yeah.
But realizing that when you've got that, maybe you can stop accumulating, and that's important to know what it is you need, and then you can reach that point. Because if you're constantly just thinking in that kind of money's good, therefore more is better, you're never going to get there.
No. Well, I think he talks about, how we always want more, more, more. So what is described as our more this year, we reach it at the end of the year and then we redefine what more is for next year. So it's just a constantly moving target, which is where he uses the word lagom, which is the Swedish word. It's kind of for enough. What is enough? How do you define enough? Which is what I try to do in the backwards budget, is to go, how much do you actually need to live and to do the things that make you happy? And that's then enough. And so, I quite liked the financial discussion that was in there. And I also felt as though it was useful to not ignore it altogether. But I liked the way that there's other things as well, which is similar to the backwards budget, about what are those other things that you need that are also going to make you happy, because just having the money isn't going to make you happy.
No. So health, friends.
Using his terms, it's, time, social, mental, physical, and financial. So maybe shall we have a chat about each of those individually? Yeah, so time wealth is the freedom to choose how it is you spend your time and who you spend it with, where to spend it, and when to trade it for something else. It's interesting, right? Because when I do coaching with people, I do try and talk to people about that quite a lot. Or when we're talking about what success might look for them, it always comes out this autonomy about your time.
Yeah.
And I think often what happens is when you have a big job, or, there's lots of job where it's 9 to 5 or many more hours than 9 to 5, but you don't feel like you have that autonomy. And what a lot of people want, I think often maybe towards the middle of their career, after they've done that sort of work, is they go, I just want to be able to choose like when I work and how I work. I don't necessarily want to work, less hard or whatever, but it's just they don't want to be tied to that 9 to 5 thing. You have to be in the office at this time, which I think is why during COVID and the sort of flexible way of working, why everyone felt actually quite a lot happier after that, right?
Yeah.
So I quite like the time wealth, and that it's certainly really important for me.
Yes. And me too. And even though I do have a job in a university, there's so much autonomy inbuilt into those jobs. You can choose, in terms of the research component, you get to choose what it is you write about and what you research. And that's a very unique thing to have. I do feel that's actually a real privilege to have that kind of autonomy in employment. You're the employee of the university, but within that role, you have a lot of choice as to how you teach, not necessarily what you teach. There's a little thing called the Priestly 11 that we're a bit bound by, but I enjoy that. And also too, there's a lot of autonomy in terms of where you are. A lot of people might go, okay, I'm in for my teaching, I'm going to work from home on the days I'm not. And that's generally quite well accepted at a university. So even just having that level of autonomy about you don't have to be in all the time, that's a very valuable thing.
And I think that's a good point for people to think about, right? Because, don't necessarily have to leave your day job to get that autonomy. And, there are jobs where you can get more autonomy. So again, I think it's about, is this important to you? Does this feel like something that would really add to your joy levels on a day-to-day basis to be able to go, Yeah, I don't start until 10 o'clock in the morning because I'm not actually a morning person, or vice versa. I
Yeah.
actually start at 6 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
finish later. Like, try and find roles where you've got some of that autonomy, because that can give you the time wealth without necessarily having to leave your big job. So I really like that section, just I think because it's very important for me. And he talks about 3 things to think about, the pillars of time wealth. So the awareness, so being aware that time is finite.
Yep.
Good old Oliver did say it better, but he says everything better. So,
He does.
um, and the attention, so the ability to direct your attention and focus on the things that matter and ignore the rest. Again, Oliver's premise. And then control. So those kind of 3 things. And I think awareness and attention are pretty important, because having an awareness, this is maybe a mix of the two, and I'm not sure if it's exactly what he was saying, but here's what I thought when I read it. And I did a post on this on LinkedIn last week about, look back at what you spent all of your time on in the past week. Does it reflect who you want to be and what you're trying to achieve? If you spent all of your time at work and none of your time with your family or your friends or your loved ones, or, doing your hobbies or playing your sport, to an outsider, what does that look like? It kind of looks like all you're trying to succeed in is your job. Is that right or not? And so being aware and paying attention to what you're spending your time on, I think, is like the first step in this time wealth.
It's the same, though, with financial stuff, though, isn't it? When you're saying about paying attention, that's always the first rule of working out how much you need too, isn't it? Just start tracking, start looking at where it's going, and then ask the same question. Does this expenditure reflect where you want your money to go, what your priorities are? So, time is money, money is time. But there's so many similarities between that. Yeah.
Yeah, just awareness. I mean, I think that's probably true across all these, right? Like, you need to have awareness, you need to be thinking about them. And often a lot of these things, particularly physical, mental and social health, they tend to be the things that dive off, right? When you've got a job that's become all consuming, you just kind of go, oh, I can't hang out with my friends, or I can't go and have dinner with my family because I'm busy. I'm doing this job. I need to work until late at night. It just kind of feels like the thing that you need to do. So becoming more aware of, is that really the thing that I want to do? I think is always the starting point for all of this.
Yeah.
So the next one is social worth, which is the connection to others in your personal and professional worlds, and the depth and the breadth of those connections.
Right. The too long didn't read version is make sure you have time for your friends and family and the people who mean something to you.
Yeah. Which is true, right? Lots of people don't prioritise that.
And I'm perhaps being unkind about this book because, again, there's no lies in there. What he said is completely right.
Okay, so you and I now have the benefit of some age.
How dare you, madam?
But it's easy for us to say at this point in our careers, or because we've come a bit wiser, I think. But there's a lot of people at, say, 30, which is quite a lot younger than you and I, who might not be prioritising those things and not thinking that they should be prioritising them. So yes, it's obvious, but only if you're thinking about it.
True. Yeah, but we're a bit older. Our children are older, and so they don't require as much time. My kids are all in their 20s.
Yeah.
Yours are, one's 20, one's 16. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they don't need as much attention or time as they once did. So it's easier now. I feel like even though I'm working in a fairly busy job, it has very busy times, which I'm in at the moment, the beginning of semester, but I'm not trying to juggle young children and friends and all that sort of thing. So there is a bit more time. My social pillar includes my adult children in addition to friends and family as well. So there is a function of not even necessarily age, but stage in life where it's easier to prioritize the other things.
And he does acknowledge that. He does talk about the seasons and talks about that in different stages of life. There will be different focus on each of those things. And then what he goes on to say is that to just not lose sight entirely of those things. So if you are in that very crazy season of young children and working full time, and it's crazy. I remember it. Yeah, figuring out maybe, what's the minimum that you can invest in some of this stuff so that you don't lose longer term relationships, friendships that you've had for a long time. You want to try and invest in them as much as you can. So maybe it's just those things of, we do catch up every few months and we have it in the diary rather than just letting it fall by the way.
Yeah, it's certainly true. It's harder at some times than others. And I always do feel too, I guess it depends on when you have your children, but your 30s and 40s are often when you've got young children, and it's usually the time in your career when you're trying to make sort of inroads. So there has to be, I think, an awareness of those seasons in life It doesn't always stay that way. And I think you still have to try and aim for those things. You have to include them. Maybe the pillars, won't be as large at certain times in your life. As you get to a different stage, you can invest more. But then I think he's also making the point too, it's probably with something like nutrition or sleep or looking after your health, that actually isn't something that can wait. Because if you go, look, I'm just going to drink madly to get through the stress of this job and I'm going to eat junk food because that's all I've got time to eat. And then when I'm 60,
I'll sort that out.
Yeah, I'll just sort of really start looking after my health. It's like, no, it doesn't quite work like that. But it's the same with money, isn't it? You can't just spend it all and go, I'll worry about it when I'm 60.
Yeah.
You can't let things go completely. But maybe at a busy season in your life, maybe you're doing the bare minimum to maintain it. But I think he makes the point is that there isn't really a time where you can let go of them, but there is a time at which it's going to be harder to prioritize, and maybe you just lower your standards for what actually constitutes meeting the needs of these pillars or meeting the requirements.
Yeah, exactly.
Give yourself a break, in other words.
So that one is social. Keep your friends, keep your family. That's essentially what the social one is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And connected. Oh, he does, mate. I have to whinge about this bit because this really annoys me when people do this. Is when they talk about the fact that, you've really got only 10 years where you're the most important thing in your child's life, and therefore, and I just think those kind of statements just make people feel guilty, It's like, that doesn't help when you've got 3 little kids running around your feet and you're trying to do your full-time job and you're trying to feed everyone and pay the mortgage. And, it just doesn't help by going on that, I think what he says in here is the days are long, but the years are short. I'm just, I don't know, those kinds of things.
But it's true. When you've got little kids, especially, the days, my God.
Crazy time.
But then you look back and go, wait a second, how is it my youngest is almost 22?
Yeah, it's true, but they were very hard days.
Sure.
They're very hard days. So the next one is about the mental wealth, which comes back to curiosity, which, our old friend Anne Laure talked about curiosity. So I like the idea that we're talking about curiosity again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just about curiosity. He talks about, that you should embrace the childlike curiosity, that you should have a clear purpose, that you should pursue growth and consistently chase my full potential. I didn't really like that statement, to be honest. I was like, oh, God.
Okay, bro.
Like getting through the day sometimes is like your full potential.
Yeah.
Don't put too much pressure on yourself.
I haven't yet shared my biggest beef with the book, but I will.
Okay, well, let me finish the sections and then let's share your beef. So that's mental wealth. Yeah, I don't know. I did find that section a little bit preachy. I like the idea of curiosity. Curiosity for me, I think, is like your cheat card out of, what's my full potential rubbish. Because actually, just follow stuff that you're curious about. You don't need to worry about whether you're doing something to your full potential or not. If you're curious about it, you probably will anyway because you're interested. Just don't do stuff you're not interested in. That's my life hack for, fulfilling your true potential. And then the next one is physical wealth. And as you said, don't not do any exercise, drink alcohol endlessly and, have McDonald's as your staple meal.
Someone needs to get this message out. Thank goodness Sahil Bloom wrote this book, because otherwise, how would we know that we have to look after our physical health?
Yes, quite right. But people don't do it, do they? They really don't. In high pressure careers that do use, alcohol to get through the stress.
Right.
So, and those are intelligent people who know that's actually probably not the greatest idea on the face of the earth and keep doing it because it's their way of releasing out of the high pressure career that they have. So again, a lot of this stuff is quite obvious, but if you're stuck in it, sometimes it's useful to read this kind of stuff to kind of go, okay, this is the argument better than what you and I would probably articulate it.
How dare you?
About why it is that we shouldn't do it.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it's so true. So if someone's struggling and has developed bad habits and they're drinking too much or whatever it is they're doing that is stress relief, but it is not sustainable as a stress relief, right? Maybe this is the book they'll go, it's the way you've phrased it and the way you've put it in this picture of the 5 pillars. That's the thing that actually makes me go, you're right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, one pillar falls down and the
roof falls
structure
down.
is not stable without it. And so, no, I agree with you. It's And maybe this is the thing that I've read that is the thing that makes me go, yeah, I probably need to make a change.
Yeah. All right. Tell me what you hated about it the most.
Oh, I've been dying to say it, Shayla.
Okay. Hit
Okay.
me.
This book could have been renamed The Bro Code. It's such a bro book. It is a man book. I think it also could be renamed Man Book for Men because it's so man.
Yeah.
I'm not a man, but what I noticed, and this actually really started to irritate me when I was reading it, and I read it the first time, I was like, great information in here, but I don't like it. And I thought it was a bit glib. Generally, when I reread something, I'm rereading it with a much kinder eye.
Yeah.
And I certainly did with this one because there's a lot. It's very densely packed. It's almost like you don't need any other book in a way.
Yeah.
But the way it was written did my head in. It was so male focused. And look, that's fine because, go nuts. Pardon the pun. But when I was reading it, I didn't like the examples he used. It was the bro code, right? It was all like Greek gods at war. This is what happened to this person when they were a Greek, army general. And I'm like, okay, dude, settle down, But then almost all of the examples he used, just casually saying this person, blah, blah, blah,
were men.
Almost exclusively men. And I'm like, okay, I suspect it's an unconscious bias of his. They're the stories that resonate with him.
Yeah.
But as a female reading it, I was switched off from it and it took me a while to work out why. But the second time as I was rereading it, that was when it became clear to me, it's sort of alienating me actually because there were a couple of female examples given. So I'm not saying there weren't any, but they were few and far between. And I found myself reading it through again. And every time an example and it was a male, I'd get annoyed because I'd go, dude, sure you can think of female examples to illustrate this point. Again, it's very easily done. We all do it. But I noticed it. And,
right. Interesting.
I found it irritating.
I didn't notice it. I only read it once, but I didn't notice it. But now that you say that, as I said, that one particular section annoyed me about you've only got this many years with your kids type, which I did definitely get the gender bias from that because, I don't know, sometimes they kind of float around on social media where it's like some woman talking about, how she remembers her child coming up to her with sticky fingers and she wished she had have stopped in the moment and, just looked at them and smiled at them and, rather than dealing with the 50 other things that she's dealing with. And I'm like, well, that's what motherhood is, right? You can't deal with every single, look at what this is, mum. It's just, it's unrealistic. And so there's felt to me like there was a real gender lens on that one.
Yeah.
This sort of, I hate this idea, this sort of rosy glasses of motherhood usually motherhood, but motherhood / parenthood. It's just hard work a lot of the time, most of the time. There's often not a great deal of joy in the day to day. It's just hard work, a real slog, a marathon. So yeah, that annoys me when people do that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And maybe I'll scan it again. And
well, he also did, and I think you touched upon it earlier too, when you were saying, I think about the health section. The health section was very male coded.
Yeah, right.
And again, we know that there are different, women's health has been under researched vis-a-vis men's health. And so I didn't then trust him to be giving me
advice.
About nutrition, because I know you seem to be coming at this from a very male lens. And there was a lot of that kind of like maximize potential,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know his background. In fact, I forget actually. I have a feeling, is he like a systems engineer, Silicon Valley kind of type?
Let me see. What does it say?
That's very much the impression he gave me. Was maximize, optimize, wear the same clothes a la Steve Jobs so I don't have to waste energy deciding what I'm going to wear. That kind of...
That's what I did read about the thing about, what was the wording? Like maximize your potential. And I'm like, look, mate, getting through the day is my potential sometimes, What does it say? Former collegiate athlete. What's a collegiate athlete?
Played
at college?
College level, which is pretty high, I think.
Yeah. So, but that is the kind of thing that then people talk about performance a lot, right? Because you're
Right.
focused on performance at that kind of
I was
level.
half expecting a link to protein powder, you know?
All
Yeah,
right.
maximize your muscle. Oh, cut it out, Sahil. In his defense, I watched a thing on YouTube. It wasn't a TED talk of his, but I thought, I'd be interested to see how he summarizes his book, 20 minutes or something. He's very handsome, never a bad thing. He also tells a really great story about how his parents met, his background, which I thought was really lovely. So, it was not all bad. I just don't want to feel like I'm running the poor, sad multimillionaire down. I'm sure he'll cope with what I think about it. But yeah, again, if I was rating this book,
Yeah, rate it, please.
honestly, I hate marking. I struggle with it. I agonize over a mark.
Problem since that's most of your job or a large part of your job.
Really is. No, it's one does not want to be agonizing over these sorts of things. But I would probably give it a 6.5 out of 10.
Oh, that's higher than I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say like 3. So I guess the question, since we have this book on Outlawbrary, do you think people should read it or not? You can say no.
If you're a bro, I reckon that'll speak to you, bro. And I say, get Sahil Bloom's Man Book for Men, 5 Types of Wealth, Maximize Your Potential, bro.
Okay.
I think you'd probably like it. I think
Otherwise, no.
there are more poetic ways to say what he said. But if you're looking for a short, well, it's not even that short, but a short, sharp, here's the pillars and here's how to implement them in granular detail, then I would say the book is for you. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. I didn't like the way it was presented, but I thought the content, with taking aside what we said about that real gender construct over it, I actually thought it was pretty good. I can't say any more than that. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, look, I'd probably give it a 6 or 7, just because, again, I think that for those who have not thought about this stuff as often and as deeply as we have, it might not be obvious to people that actually, how much you're being paid is not the only thing that you need to be thinking about and might be making you a little bit unhappy. So I liked the way it just distilled that idea, but I can agree with some of your criticisms. But yeah, I thought it was all right.
Hey, and look, if anyone wants to read this, and I will not call out, yo, bro, if I see you with a copy of this book, each to their own, there is a lot to like about this book. And as I said, I think the content is really, really good. And I think if you get this book and you like the way it's written, I think actually you wouldn't need any other book, because I think it pretty much nails
the concepts.
Guide to Life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, Outlaws. Well, tell us if you're going to read it or have read it, and tell us what your experience of it was, and maybe even your rating. Send us an email, contact@outlaws.com, or chat to us on the socials. So we've chosen our next Outlawbrary book. We've got one more to do before the end of the season, and so it's called Mattering: The Secret to Building a Life of Deep Connection and Purpose by Jennifer Braheny Wallace. So I haven't started it. Have you started it?
I have started it, and I've been listening to it on audiobook, not at night, because the nighttime is reserved for Barack and Stanley.
Yes. So Outlaws, if you want to have a read of it before we have a chat about it in a few weeks, get onto it now. Have a great rest of your week, Kate.
You too, Shayla. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.